All right, everybody, good late afternoon or early evening. This is a continuation of the video I posted this morning where I was looking at defensive linemen in the upcoming NFL draft that did a lot to advance their stock with the way they played in the 2023 season. So, this video, we're going to be combining linebacker and safety together. So, I don't have quite as much to say here, and admittedly, I don't think it's quite as important to highlight these two positions when you look at the way the Seahawks are set up right now, but I do want to take a little bit of time on it. Like, obviously, when you look at the offensive side of the ball, quarterback's always going to be the most fun, so we had five quarterbacks. It was a little bit tougher to find offensive linemen and tight ends, so I only had three of each. That's kind of what happened here. I don't have as much to say with linebacker or safety. I could only find a few guys that stood out to me as, oh, that's a standout player now. Once again, when I pull up their numbers, if you want to see the whole thing, you need to look at the bar right above the sheet, like this, if you want to see the whole thing, because there is a cutoff, because I didn't want to make the text too small, and if you want to see the entire gamut, you just look at the white bar up here. So, we're going to start at linebacker here, and this first guy is the big one. This guy came out of nowhere to now be one of the top linebackers in this draft. And the way he played this year for Texas A&M, he might sneak into that first round at this rate. I don't think he will, but then the numbers are overwhelmingly good. 609 snaps, 268 in coverage, 254 against the run, 87 pass rush snaps, so he did a good amount of all three things you're going to want a linebacker to do. 84 tackles, which doesn't seem like a lot, but on 609 snaps, that's pretty good. And 17 of them were tackles for loss, so a lot of his plays are made in the backfield. 8 sacks, so big time creator of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. 27 pressures, that's more than 2 a game as an inside linebacker. So really good on the blitz. 2 pass breakups. 91.7 PFF grade. Number 1 among all inside linebackers in the sport this year. 91.7 PFF adores Edgerrin Cooper. 88 run defense grade, which is 10th in the country. 90.8 coverage is 4th. So he's elite against the run, elite in coverage, and an elite pass rusher. 12th, 86.7. Like, this guy is well-rounded. This guy is a playmaker. This guy's all over the place. For a guy who really came out of nowhere, I'm really looking at him as a definite day 2 guy, and if he sneaks into day 1, I'm not going to be shocked. He has the definition of a guy that is going to be a late riser, just because I feel like a lot of people weren't even aware of him before. The second guy, Tyron Hopper of Missouri, 563 snaps. Mostly coverage, 253 coverage snaps, 223 run snaps, 87 pass rush snaps, so good variety. Didn't put up monster stats, 55 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 17 pressures, 3 pass breakups. PFF was not a fan. I'm just going to say that straight up. PFF thought he was okay as a run defender and as a pass rusher, but atrocious in coverage. He was, however, the linchpin of a pretty good Missouri defense. I do think there are some things that go beyond the statistics that PFF didn't capture. And Tyron Hopper was a guy who wasn't even really part of the draft conversation until this season. And now I feel like he's going to be a round 4, round 5 guy. I do think there's some stuff to really like here with him. So he, to me, is one of the risers as well, despite not necessarily being a blue chipper or anywhere close. I do think there's a good player here. Final guy who I think has done a lot to boost his draft stock would be Peyton Wilson of the North Carolina State Wolfpack. This guy played a lot this year and put up monster numbers. That doesn't always mean anything, but in this case, I think it does. Played over 716 snaps, 305 in coverage, 255 against the run, 156 pass rush snaps. So he did a ton of everything, and he meant everything to that defense. 138 total tackles, over 10 tackles a game, 17 and a half go for a loss. 6 QB sacks, 22 pressures, that's a pressure and a half a game. 3 interceptions, big presence in coverage, 7 pass breakups. 88.7 PFF grade, that's 7th among all inside linebackers. Really good run defender, 83.2, that's 23rd. Elite coverage, 90.4, 7th. The only thing he's not elite at is pass rushing, and he's still pretty good. 76th with a 73.4. That's not bad at all. So Peyton Wilson went from a guy who would be lucky to get drafted to a guy who I could see being an early day 3 pick now. So those would be my 3 linebackers that really rose. Again, this is not every linebacker that matters. There are plenty of linebackers out there who are still going to be highly touted in the draft. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Barrett Carter, Eichenberg, Danny Stutzman, Cedric Gray. But these are the guys to me that really hopped on the radar as this season went on. Now we're going to do safety, and I think recent events have made looking at safeties all the more important this upcoming draft. So I do ultimately, I am happy that I spent so much time looking at safeties this year because I think we're going to need some, and I'm hoping we need some because it means we will have moved on from some stuff that, quite frankly, probably needs to be moved on from. So safeties that rose significantly this year, we're going to start with Michigan's Rod Moore. Didn't play a lot, missed some games, only 370 snaps, but decent spread of coverage and run defense. 29 tackles, including 1 for a loss. Had 2 pressures, didn't do a lot of blitzing, but when he did, it was effective. 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, allowed 12 catches, 95 yards and a touchdown on like 20 targets. So very little given up in coverage from Michigan. 72.1 PFF grade is not remarkable, but it's in the top 150 for all safeties across college football. Run defense grade was really good, almost an 80, 54th. Coverage grade was solid, 68.3. It's not even in the top 200 for all safeties in college football, but as a grade itself, it works. And again, this is a guy who missed a decent chunk of games this year. So Rod Moore, to me, went from somebody who probably wasn't going to get drafted to a guy who's probably now a 4th or 5th round pick, maybe 6th. Third guy will be Bew Braid of the Maryland Terrapins. He was a guy who I wasn't looking at all before the season. Now, it wouldn't shock me, not that I think he will, but it wouldn't shock me if he crept into that day 2. 681 snaps, had an almost equal number of coverage snaps and run defense snaps, 330. 27 pass rush snaps, not a big part of his game. 3 pressures, not really what you're looking to do with Bew Braid. 74 tackles, 4 for a loss, 1 pick, 6 pass breakups. Did get dinged a little bit in coverage, 21 catches allowed for 240 yards and 4 touchdowns, which it was honestly a lot of it was in one bad game he had, but other than that he was pretty good. 68.9 PFF, which is 200th in the league for safeties, still above average. Really good as a run defender, 71.6, even though it's only 160th among all safeties, still well above average. 66.5 coverage grade is middling, needs to get better, but I like what he's shown in terms of being a ball hawk. I think he was probably a little bit more prolific as a ball hawk even last year compared to this year. So to me, Bew Braid, even though he didn't have his best year, even though there are some clear holes and issues here, he's a guy who is now on my radar. He was not on my radar before. So Bew Braid is one of my risers. And this final guy, I don't know if he's going to declare for the draft. He probably won't. But if he did, I really like him. It's Jaden Hicks of the Washington Cougars. He played a ton this year and had to do a lot for the Cougars. Probably their best player on defense. So almost 800 snaps, 427 in coverage, 338 against the run. He did rush the quarterback a little bit and had some success. 22 pass rush snaps. He actually was efficient. He had 7 pressures and 2.5 sacks on those rushes. So that's a pretty good ratio in terms of blitzes versus success. 79 tackles, which is a lot, 6 for a loss. Like I said, 2.5 sacks, 7 pressures, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. Allowed 21 catches for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns in coverage. PFF grade is 76.9, which is close to the top 50 for all safeties, 65th. His run defense grade wasn't so great. It wasn't even ranked because it was so low. But his coverage grade of almost 83 is 28th. Really, really good. And this is on a team that doesn't really give him a lot to work with. If Jaden Hicks declares, I'm all over that. I'm really, really intrigued to see where Jaden Hicks goes from here. And that's it for my defensive risers. These are the guys who I think are made a name for themselves really, really well in 2023. And if we came away with some of these guys in the draft, I would be pretty excited about that. You always have to be careful of the guys who are late risers, I guess. But for most of these guys, I like what I see, and I'm at the very least open to it. All right, so I think we've squeezed most of what we can out of draft stuff at this point in terms of things that are happening. So the only thing that's really left to do now is process everything that's happened into a coherent big board and draft strategy. So that's going to be the focus from now on. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you see things a different way, maybe. And more videos coming later on. More stuff to talk about as always. See you guys then. Go Hawks.